Thank you. So first of all, happy to be here. I am a business developer student at Hyper Island, but I'm also studying digitalization of manufacturing. And I've worked in manufacturing for the last 10 years. So that is my perspective going into this. So since I'm not an expert or professor in this area, I'm going to talk a little bit about applications of AI instead. And yeah, I'm going to have to sort of give you a brief introduction to manufacturing, the world that we're going to step into. But I just want to throw a question out there also. In Japan, about 80% of all companies right now are worried about finding the right competence. And how are we going to solve that in the future? So first of all, starting with the Industrial Revolution, most of you, probably all of you have heard about this, but I'm going to repeat some of it. The first revolution was inventing the combustion engine and mechanization, basically using machines to enhance human capabilities. And the second one was electrification, which enabled mass production. And the third one, which is the one we're in right now, is electronics, which enables automation. But where are we heading? We are heading into full-scale digitalization of manufacturing industry. And we can say up until this point, number 3 here, we have, with each step of progress, we have needed less people, and those people in turn have also needed less skills. So we gave them fewer tasks with less need of competence to perform that task. But stepping into digitalization and Industry 4.0, we're gonna still need less people to do more output, but we see that they're gonna need more skills with complexity increasing. So what is Industry 4.0? This is basically connecting resources, information, and humans that have in the past been separate and optimized separate, but now are going to be interconnected, working together. And why we do this is, of course, increased efficiency, doing the right things, increased quality, doing things right, and increased productivity, doing more with less. But there are some challenges, and what are those challenges? So one of them that I see in my experience and going into this new profession of business development and business design is that we have designed by engineers for engineers. And so where the manufacturing industry in the past has been in the forefront of technology compared to the rest of society, we've also had a very heavy focus on that technology and functions for the machines and not functions for humans. But especially in Industry 4.0, where we're going to connect everything, all the resources together, we have to think about the humans also, because if we don't optimize for humans, we're not going to optimize the system as a whole. So the solution for that is human-centered design, and specifically in this context, how can AI and humans work together? Traditionally, companies have worked with problem solving like this. Mostly it's been about fixing problems. A little bit it's been about continuous improvements, and the little amount of resources and time that is still left is spent on innovating. And that's most part incremental innovation. But this little guy over here, which is disruptive innovation or disrupting, is often neglected. And going into this new digital revolution, I recommend that we focus at least 50-50 on operation and innovation. And that's not just a question of best practice, like that's not just about learning from others, but that's also a matter of strategy. So with innovation, as always, we don't really know what the solution is going to be, and we don't know what future manufacturing is going to look like or produce. So basically, the one that gets there first is the one that's going to reap the benefits. And as I said, I'm not really an expert, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some applications where AI meets humans. So let's kick off with, what is AI? I reached out to my cousin, who is a data engineer, and asked him, like, what is AI really? Because I heard about it, I've talked about it, looked at applications for it, but I don't really understand what it is. And he said he doesn't either, because it's like what we called AI yesterday is not AI today. But basically, my definition is technology mimicking human intelligence. And not everything that we call AI is going to maybe fit perfectly with that definition. But yeah, that's the one I'm going to use here. So manufacturing is an area that traditionally has tried to make humans more into machines in order to optimize. But at the level of complexity that we get with digitalization, we need to make that technology in those machines become more human instead. So we have to turn it around. And how do we do that? Well, let's look at some human traits. So for example, understanding human speech. And this one, maybe the most human of all, like language, can be really helpful in a manufacturing context where you have maybe both as an operator, but also as a technician or electrician or whatever, that you're going to have your hands occupied. So you can't really use them to hold a phone or, to turn in some papers. And that's going to use, up even more human resources. But if you can speak directly to the machine, that's going to free up a lot of resources and quicken the process also. We have image processing, which is, an area where AI is becoming quite good at, recognizing objects just from video or photographing. And we have machine learning. Learning is one of the most human traits, and we talked about machine learning already. But this is, in Industry 4.0, you basically have, if you're going to optimize the entire process, you want to have a digital twin so that you're monitoring everything that is happening in the physical, also in the digital. And not only that, but actually you can affect the digital and through that affect the physical. That is when you have a twin. You can do that with a simple, a single machine or resource, or you can do that with an entire factory or value chain even. And we're going to need AI to process all that big data and make some sense of it. And the last one is communicating. So all of you interested in AI, you've heard about the Turing test. So basically, if you communicate to the machine and you can't really tell if it's a human or a machine, then you're dealing with an AI. And that communication is going to be key. So what kind of application can we see emerging here? Already, and especially in the year past that lies past us in the pandemic year, we've had something called remote guidance growing more and more, which is basically you have an expert that can be on another location talking to a technician or operator and giving instructions. And through a simple device such as AR glasses, you can then project images or take down notes which are then projected onto the physical reality, and you can feed video live stream back to the person guiding you. But of course, you don't need to have a human expert. Nobody said that. So what you could do is actually have an AI guide you. And it could then, as we said in the previous slide, it could process the images, it could understand your speech, it could learn from previous such as experiences. And it could also monitor all the big data that you're dealing with in the system and then communicate back to you like a colleague. It could look something like this. This is a concept. So basically here you have something that looks like a digital twin of the part that he's working on. And then you have some data in front of that. And maybe you even have a voice in your ear telling you that, okay, you need to adjust this part, or you need to crank up this, or whatever. So my key takeaways, and if you remember the question that I asked early in this talk, how we're going to solve that knowledge gap, that we're going to need a lot more competence with the complexity increasing. So Industry 4.0 equals complexity, which equals need for expertise. And AI can bridge that gap with augmented expertise when needed, instead of upskilling or replacing the workforce. So that's going to be a big saver for both humans working in the manufacturing and the companies themselves. And that's everything for me. That's my 10 minutes. Thank you.